Welcome to Neurodivergent Faith, a podcast to help you navigate the beautiful and complicated intersection of neurodivergence and Christian faith and practice. Whether you're neurodivergent yourself, or you're a friend, family member, or church leader seeking to understand more about the neurodivergent Christian experience, you're in the right place. My name's Josh Davis. I'm autistic, ADHD, a spiritual director, and an ordained pastor, and I'm delighted to have you join me as we explore the unique ways neurodivergent people experience God, worship, community, and scripture, along with special interests, sensory and attention differences, social and communication challenges, and much more. Together, we'll break down barriers, confront misconceptions and assumptions, and celebrate the beautiful diversity of God's creation in all of us. So, if you're ready to think deeply and creatively, to reconcile your faith and your brain wiring, or you just want to hear what it sounds like when neurodivergence and Christianity have a conversation, come on in. It's a bit messy, definitely interesting, and we wouldn't have it any other way. We don't do small talk here, so let's jump into something real, raw, and robust. Are you ready? Take a deep breath, hold it, and let it out with a sigh. All right, here we go. So there's a word we use in neurodivergent spaces, masking. It means shaping ourselves, sometimes consciously or sometimes instinctively and unconsciously, to fit into social constructs, into spaces, into relationships that weren't built for us. It includes the effort to hide or soften the parts of ourselves that don't seem welcome, parts that may feel like too much or too sensitive or too different. At its essence, I believe masking is about safety. It's about belonging. But over time, it can exhaust the soul, disconnecting us from our truest self, the self that God formed, that God knows, that God loves. So, what happens when masking meets spiritual formation? This series is an exploration of that sacred intersection where the longing to belong meets an invitation to authenticity, and where, if we listen closely, we might hear God whisper, "You don't have to hide to be loved. You don't have to perform to be loved. You don't have to pretend you're different than you are in order to be loved." I want to start right up front by saying this episode has been a hard one for me to record. I've worked on it for a while. I've sat with it for a while, and I just know that I'm not going to be able to cover everything in an introduction to masking, and that's hard. This one is also connected to my own personal story very deeply, and that makes it even harder, I think, to process through and to try to capture the nuance in words. And to try to figure out what to share and what not to share, or what conversations we might delve into more deeply in the future. So I'm going to do my best. Thanks for sticking with me, and thanks as always for the grace that you offer me as I try to make this space for us to consider some things deeply, to have some conversations, and hopefully to be able to share with others in our lives some of our lived experience. So I want to start by saying that masking isn't just an autistic thing. It shows up across neurodivergence and ADHD, social anxiety, OCD, trauma responses, even chronic illness. It's any way we learn to suppress or disguise parts of ourselves to appear more acceptable, more competent, or more quote unquote together. And masking is a human thing. We all humans mask at some level, in some way, shape, or form. But masking can become a lifestyle for neurodivergent people, and that comes at a great cost, which we'll explore together. For some, masking means scripting conversations or mirroring tone. For others, it might be over-explaining or people-pleasing or overachieving. Masking can help us feel safe. I'll put that in quotation marks. Masking can help us feel quote unquote safe. But it can also make belonging feel conditional. And when it becomes the way we relate to God and we relate to others and we relate to ourselves, you can imagine the effect that that has on the shaping of our souls. So before we go deeper into the spiritual costs of masking, I want to take a moment to define what autistic masking actually is. And I'm going to be referencing a blog post by Dr. Megan Anna Neff on Neurodivergent Insights. It's a great resource. This post is called Autism Masking Explained: What It Is, Why It Happens, and What to Do. Dr. Neff explains that autistic masking is at its heart an adaptive strategy. It's the way autistic people learn to navigate a world built by and for neurotypicals, a world that doesn't often make space for our brains, our movements, our thoughts, or our ways of being. Masking can feel like putting on a costume, like rehearsing a play where you were never given the script. I really resonate with that idea. Like, I've been put on stage and I'm supposed to be performing. There's a live audience and I've never been given the script. Masking includes observing, copying, scripting, and performing behaviors to blend in, to try to be safe, to try to belong. And here I'll just note, it's heart-wrenching for me. My experience is heart-wrenching, that in this effort to belong through masking, I never was able to belong because what belonged was my mask, and my true self was not welcome. The article by Dr. Neff breaks masking into 3 core components, and I found these categories really helpful in understanding my own experiences. The first component is compensation. This is the art of mimicking and copying. We watch, we study, and sometimes we memorize the social behaviors of others, the way they gesture, the rhythms of their speech, the phrases they use. Some of us even create scripts and rehearse them in advance. Compensation is a survival skill, yes, but it's also exhausting. It requires constant attention and mental energy. You can never let your guard down because the goal is always to match a world that isn't designed for you. The second component is masking, or this could be called repression. Here, we suppress our natural autistic traits. Stimming that soothes the nervous system might be hidden or altered in some way. I learned to stim in ways that others didn't see, or in ways that were quote unquote socially acceptable. But I didn't do what my body actually needed to do, what my body actually longed to do. Our bodies, our expressions, our very impulses are constantly monitored and sometimes silenced. We develop an inner critic that's always reminding us to conform, always warning us what might be too much or others might think is weird. Masking is about hiding parts of ourselves in plain sight, and the spiritual toll can be profound because it asks us to override our God-given instincts for regulation and authentic expression. The third component of autistic masking is called assimilation, or you could call this performing. This is the act of pretending, performing. This is stepping onto the stage and playing a role that feels unnatural, doing what is expected, even when it doesn't align with who we truly are. That might mean making small talk, even when it's draining. And for me, it's always draining. It might mean taking on tasks to appear engaged or subtly avoiding interaction to keep yourself invisible. Assimilation can help us survive socially, but it comes with a cost. a gradual erosion of the connection between our inner life and the persona we present to the world. So when we talk about autistic masking, we're not talking about a single behavior or moment. We're talking about a layered, complex survival system, one that blends compensation, masking, and assimilation into a constant effort to navigate spaces that weren't made for us. And while those strategies can help us function, they also come with real costs: mental, emotional, and spiritual. Masking can leave us feeling disconnected from ourselves, from our bodies, from our God-given sense of authenticity. And it can create tension between the truth of who we are and the performance required to belong. And I'll put that word belong in quotation marks, because Brene Brown says that the opposite of belonging is fitting in. And that's been my experience. So awareness, I believe, is the first step toward integration, toward spaces where we can show up fully, gently, and with integrity. Later on in this episode, I'm going to reflect on my own CAT-Q results. That's the Autistic Masking Assessment, and how I scored across these three different components and the ways that that connects to the spiritual costs of masking: the tension, the anxiety, the exhaustion, and the longing to be fully known. Also, here up front, I want to just highlight some of the differences between autistic and ADHD masking. As I just mentioned, autistic masking often involves suppressing stims, mimicking social behaviors, forcing eye contact to appear quote unquote normal. But ADHD masking focuses on controlling impulsivity, managing inattention, using humor to deflect sometimes, maybe even faking focus to appear quote unquote put together. The core difference lies in the source of effort. Autism is masking more social differences. I don't for a moment believe that autistic people are less social than neurotypical people, but we are different. We socialize in different ways, right? And autistic masking hides those differences, while ADHD masking hides differences in executive function. And if you're not familiar with what executive function is, we've done a 3-part series on this so far. So go back and listen to my conversations with Robin Tate about executive function. Both ADHD masking and autistic masking are trying to fit neurotypical expectations, and both kinds of masking cause significant fatigue. So autistic masking, the goal is to appear neurotypical by hiding autistic traits and to try to fit in socially. And the result is often extreme exhaustion, sensory overwhelm, burnout, and a feeling of disconnection from self. In ADHD masking, the goal is to appear organized, focused, attentive, hide impulsivity and attention, perhaps hyperactivity. And the result is mental fatigue, feeling scattered, and perpetual internal chaos. Both of these kinds of masking result in exhaustion and disconnection from self. And many people, like me, who are ADHD, autistic and ADHD, do both kinds of masking, which leads to complex presentations where traits mask each other. So ADHD traits can mask my autistic traits, and my autistic traits can mask my ADHD traits. It gets quite complex. And to be honest, I'm feeling exhausted just talking about it. So let's take a pause just for me to do some deep breathing. Cue the music. Interestingly, before I ever knew I was autistic, I wrote this song. It's called Illusion. And after being diagnosed autistic, I realized that this entire song was about masking. It was my soul trying to tell the truth before my mind could make sense of the truth. And so I want to play this song for you and then circle back afterwards and reflect on it a bit together. A few of the lines that really stick out to me. What if the me that you see is who you want me to be? I intuited very early on what behaviors people liked and appreciated and accepted, and what behaviors were distressing to the people around me or people didn't appreciate or didn't accept. And so I learned to put forward the version of me that people wanted me to be. What if the me that you see is nothing more than mere survival adaptation? Oh my gosh, I can't believe I wrote that. Uh, yeah, yeah. What if the me that you see isn't me at all? And then these really honest questions. Is it possible for you to love me as I am? Is it possible that I could love you as I am? If you're curious, you could go back and play the song a few more times. I actually wrote it in such a way that it could be me talking to other people, or it could be me talking to God, or it could be God talking to me. So if you want to play it back and listen with that framework in mind, feel free to do that. Listening back to that song now, I can hear both ache and longing, an ache of being unseen. I was masking in every area of my life, including to myself. I was masking 24/7 for as long as I can remember. And that resulted in feeling completely unseen, but not really understanding that. So there was this ache of being unseen, but there was also this longing to be loved as I truly am. And I believe that is a human longing. It's an ancient longing woven into generations of people who've had to hide in order to survive. Maya Angelou captured that ache with haunting clarity in her poem entitled The Mask. It's rooted in the Black experience of resilience and endurance. And I imagine that its truth might echo into every heart that's ever hidden its pain behind a practiced smile. I'd like to share with you this excerpt from her poem. We wear the mask that grins and lies. It shades our cheeks and hides our eyes. This debt we pay to human guile, with torn and bleeding hearts we smile and mouth the myriad subtleties. As I read her words, I notice how much of my own faith journey I lived behind a mask, not knowingly, not consciously, but indeed, that was my experience. So, as part of my autism assessment process, I was given the CAT-Q, CAT-Q. This is the Camouflaging Autistic Traits Questionnaire. And it's a self-assessment that's meant to measure the degree to which a person masks in social situations. I expected I might score somewhere in the middle, but when I finished, my total was 144. That is well above the male autistic average of 110. And according to the research, individuals who score 125 or higher show the greatest relative risk for anxiety and depression. And I'll never forget when I was taking the assessment, I was reading the questions and I was thinking, wait, doesn't everybody do this? Doesn't everyone plan what to say before entering a conversation? Doesn't everyone rehearse how to look relaxed, how to sound interested, how to seem quote unquote normal? I really thought that's what it meant to be human. I thought we were all working this hard, but apparently not. Apparently, what I called quote unquote being human was actually survival adaptation. So I'm just going to highlight a few of the questions from the CAT-Q because these in particular stopped me in my tracks. Number 7. In social situations, I feel like I'm performing rather than being myself. Yes, almost always. And yet, strangely, in faith spaces, I often confuse performing with being faithful, as if being Christ-like meant playing a role rather than actually being transformed from the inside out. I thought I had to keep showing up looking like Jesus. What I failed to realize was that I could show up looking like myself and looking like Jesus at the same time. This highlights the spiritual cost of masking, authenticity. Over time, I forgot who I was beneath the performance. Number 19. I feel free to be myself when I'm with other people. Oof, this one cuts deep. When we can't be ourselves with others, when we can't be ourselves with ourself, it's hard to believe we can be ourselves with God. Number 25, in social situations, I feel like I'm pretending to be quote unquote normal. I spent years trying to be what other people expected me to be in church, in ministry, in friendship, but pretending drains the soul and it erodes integrity, that inner alignment between what's true inside and what's visible outside. These days, I often take time to bless my own body, to bless myself. And one of the blessings I speak over myself is I align my internal and external realities. Number 18, I'm always aware of the impression I make on other people. That's constant for me. I'm always aware as I walk into a room what my very presence as a middle-aged white male is impressing on the people around me. I'm aware of the weight my words have. I'm aware of the smallest things that people show or say that let me know what makes them uncomfortable, that let me know what sets them at ease. And there's some beauty to this, right? Being sensitive, being thoughtful, reading the room. If I'm honest, I wish more people were able to do that. But underneath that, what developed that for me was fear of being misunderstood or rejected, and shame to feel like I had to show up on other people's terms because my own terms were problematic somehow. Number 13, I have to force myself to interact with people when I'm in social situations. Oh, here's the truth. I love people. I truly, truly, truly love people. But I do not feel like I love people in groups. I feel threatened by the group of people. It's too much for me to process. It's sensory overwhelm. So one-on-one, I do not have to force myself to interact with people. I actually really enjoy it. Most of my life these days is spent offering one-on-one spiritual direction through online meetings. And I never am hesitant to show up to those meetings. I'm never having to force myself to show up. I'm always looking forward to it. But in those groups of people, and especially when lots of people are talking at once, just the sheer sound and all of the sensory input that's happening makes my body want to run away or scream. So I suppress that. And while I suppress my body's natural inclination, I'm then also putting on a face that looks like I'm able to be engaged, that looks like I'm relaxed and comfortable and listening. Oh, I can't even explain how much work that takes. And then that leads to number 21. I adjust my body language or facial expressions so that I appear relaxed. I've done this for as long as I can remember because I want the other person to be relaxed. And also because I learned early on that if I showed distress, I would be met with more distress. My distress would distress others who would pour their distress back on me. So instead of being met and calmed and soothed in my distress, I found that if I showed my distress or shared my distress, it would result in more distress coming back towards me. And I believe that's a big part of what caused me to develop this kind of masking, adjusting my body language or facial expressions to appear relaxed. So as I'm thinking about the spiritual toll of masking, and I'm still forming these ideas and thoughts, but I can see it circling around these four words: authenticity, integrity, connection, and grace. Masking can quietly distort each of those. We lose authenticity when we can't tell where the mask ends and where we actually begin. We lose integrity when our outer self no longer matches our inner truth. We lose connection when people love the mask, but never ever even meet the person. And we lose grace when we start believing we have to earn belonging. And yet, naming this, seeing it, even grieving it, is the beginning of healing. God's invitation is not to throw away the mask in one dramatic act. That's not what I've sensed God inviting me to do, but to notice when and why it appears, to notice what's behind it. Is it fear? Is it shame? To let God encounter me in my fear and in my shame, and tend to those fearful and shameful places with God. And to begin to believe that even unmasked, we are still loved. So I want to give you a chance to reflect. This is just an intro episode on masking. I'm going to have some conversations with some friends in the next couple of episodes that I think you're going to appreciate. And we'll talk about masking in different scenarios, faith spaces, etc. But I'd like to invite you to close this time by reflecting on your own life. I'll ask you a question and then just give you a little bit of time to reflect on your response. Where in your life do you feel like you're performing rather than being yourself? What might it look like to bring your unmasked self into prayer this week? And how might God respond if you did? What's underneath? What's motivating your masking? Is it fear? Fear of rejection? Is it shame? Believing that you're not enough or there's something wrong with you the way that you are? Could you invite God, even in this moment, to meet you in your fear or in your shame? May you remember that the God who formed you in secret is not asking you to hide. May you sense God inviting you home to your truest self, to belonging that doesn't depend on performance. I hope you'll continue to join me for these conversations on masking, and I would love to hear your own experiences and your own questions. This could turn into a whole season, I can imagine. So send in your thoughts, your reflections, your questions, and let's keep this conversation going. Thanks for listening to this episode of Neurodivergent Faith. If you like what you heard, consider subscribing, leaving a review, or sharing this with someone who might need to hear it too. And as you continue to wrestle with faith and identity, remember, your unique brain is a part of God's creative genius. Whether it's the way you process scripture, engage with prayer, or connect with others, you are a reflection of the vast creativity of our Creator. May you trust that God knows you, delights in you, and is working in you exactly as you are. And may you know that you are not walking this journey alone. See you next time.